Alright, so grab your mochas, grab your lattes, grab your cappuccino, whatever the fuck you're drinking, and settle on in. It's your boy, your host for today, Jobbers and Goons. Welcome to Coffee Shop Comics. Recently, we've been getting a lot of love on this channel, specifically due towards Don's awesome content on the upcoming Halloween movie. As well as a versus battle with Walking Dead and a Halloween character. So definitely go check out that content. And we will have Halloween bangers coming throughout the month here and over on my main channel, Jobbers and Goons. But getting back to this, I want to talk about someone broken and someone downright terrifying in battle. We actually have a battle coming up featuring this character. So it's pretty dope to get out and kind of scale them in advance. So one character I've been curious about for a while has been God of Stories Loki. Obviously, in the Marvel fan base, specifically among the power scalers and like the niche power scalers, as this is kind of a small, not as many appearances, right? He is back now in Defenders Beyond, but God of Stories Loki doesn't have a crazy amount of appearances. Well, this Loki I decided to investigate, read all his stories. Stupidly powerful. And we're going to talk about just how strong God of Stories Loki is today and just what he's capable of. First, we need to kind of establish who God of Stories Loki is. Primarily deriving from stories like Loki, Agent of Asgard, and other stories, Loki has always played this trope of the villain. That is, he's the evil god seeking to ruin the day for characters such as his half-brother, step-brother, whatever you want to call him, Thor Odinson. Well, with this nature in mind, his hood rat shit he did as a god basically cemented his narrative forever in a cycle of Loki being the god of mischief, aka the god of evil. That is, this narratively bound him where everywhere throughout space and time, throughout the multiverse, Loki would always be destined to be this. Loki, becoming aware of this trap of a narrative, wanted to escape it. He didn't want to be the bad guy anymore. He didn't want to be the god of evil. He didn't want to be bound to what was binding him as a narrative. Thus, he began taking tasks from the All-Mother in order to unlock his potential and unlock his ability to be free of the narrative binds. So, at this point, he's doing shit like hopping from panels, dealing with characters that can hop from panels, because after saving Thor from a darkness, Loki handed the darkness over to All-Mother, who created King Loki. King Loki being basically the god of evil, the final form of Loki, if he was to live out his narrative. And King Loki is stupidly powerful. Like I said, he was hopping from panels. He was changing narratives and pulling off retcons in order to clash with who would eventually become God of Stories Loki. So anyways, getting back to this, Loki is literally undergoing tasks throughout time and space to retcon his own story, take away parts of his narrative, till eventually he can forge his own. Eventually, we get some crazy clashes with Loki. For example, Doctor Doom runs into him because Doctor Doom figures out how magic, which is what changes stories and creates stories, was able to create narratives, and Doom wanted to do his own shit with narratives. And Loki's like, dude, can we deal with your shit later? Even Loki at one point gets trapped by Doctor Doom in a prison where narratives cannot exist, although obviously Loki would be out of this later on. Loki goes on to develop his powers as the god of stories, and eventually gets into a clash with the likes of King Loki. Now, this is crazy because King Loki's like the end of everything. Doctor Doom said he saw that at the end of all things in creation, there was Loki. So, this Loki who can change stories, pull off retcons, hop from stories, invade other stories, and battle God of Stories Loki. God of Stories Loki eventually brings up narratives and characters so strong and so dangerous that we actually see King Loki run to the outside. That is, he runs beyond the story itself. This would include the multiverse, which is infinite in nature, has infinite timelines, countless worlds, a myriads of dimensions, infinite dimensional and structure. And then you go beyond that to other realms like the dark dimension and realms beyond that. You have several layers into outer versal at that point. Eventually, you get to concepts such as the far shore, the outside. These are high outer versal concepts. The outside being outside of stories and narratives, or at least that's what it's hoped to be. And we saw King Loki escape there. Eventually, God of Stories Loki runs back into King Loki and one-taps him. Hits a mean pose on him and is like, yeah, bitch, you don't scale to me. You're a bitch for trying to bind me to my narrative. Get boloed. And easily scaled above King Loki, who already had high outer hacks in scaling. This God of Stories Loki also is able to access the House of Ideas. The House of Ideas is a wild level of scaling because in the House of Ideas, this contains every stories. The stories of the multiverse, of creation, of even the omniverse. All these things exist within the House of Ideas. This, we see Loki when visiting here. This place houses shelves, for example, the stories of Spider-Man, the stories of Wolverine, which is a massive shelf, all these stories. Loki has a book that's unending or infinite, that's unwritten yet. Basically, even in the realm that contains the narratives to a high outer to boundless degree, Loki's book is endless and is not finished and not tarnished yet. He even gains full access to the House of Ideas and such, because he was able to beat the Keepers in a game of chess, unlocking consciousness and the ideas and abilities within it. We also see his hacks stretched to the degree that when he was facing a character, he was able to make them worthy of meeting the one above all and literally BFR'd them to the true realm of the one above all. With his hacks, God of Stories Loki kind of wrapping up a summary of crazy shit he was doing and how he scales. Obviously, he has high outer to boundless scaling for his different hacks, his narrative hacks, his retconning abilities, his ability to overcome retcons, overcome his own narratives. He even threatened the ones who sit above in shadow. You see a lot of people try to, or do use that scaling to buff Rune King Thor. We see God of Stories Loki actually confront the ones above who sit in shadow. And the crazy thing with them is that they feed on stories and narratives, right? Like the stories of Ragnarok and all these things, Loki, Thor. Well, they were trying to punk God of Stories Loki, and he was like, look, I actually completely understand what y'all are doing. I understand what's going on because I'm the God of Stories. And he goes, listen, you guys think you're so fucking tough and you're so much above me, but you forgot something. What you guys are doing right now, what you guys have always done, that is a story. And we see at this point, the energy in the fucking room starts to shift, right? Like, the ones above in shadow, they're like, oh shit, Loki is not a bitch. This is a different breed of Loki. And Loki goes, do y'all want to know about your story? Do you want me to tell you your story? And they're like, hell no. And they get out of there because it's obvious at this point, Loki could shape their story, change their story, destroy them, mess with their story, all that. Loki is a beast. Overall, he has crazy narrative hacks, scales massively above any other iterations of Loki we've seen, and is one of the strongest characters we've ever seen in comics. Overall, guys, let me know what you thought of this video on God of Stories Loki. Tried to explain some of the scaling, what he's done, how it's quite literally narrative hacks, all these amazing things. And he's going to be facing 3 broken anime characters / manga characters, but I also personally will be eventually doing a battle if the fans want to see it between him and House of Ideas Vision. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to Coffee Shop Comics if you haven't already, and you can go check out my main channel, Jobbers and Goons, as well. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. It's been your host, Jobbers and Goons, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.